Part 80. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 791. Chapter 791. Isn't it bad to express disdain clearly? We despise you clearly, and you are happy to be with me, right? It's not uncomfortable. Lu Jing nodded when he heard this. You are right. Although you two dislike me, I am really happy to be with you. But if you don't let Josu hit me, then that's the best. After saying this, Lu Jing touched his face with his hand. Look at my face, my handsome face. Sun Ying'er looked at Lu Jing's recovery. She now felt that this guy was pretty good at emo. Okay, I promise you, I can dislike you less in the future, and I can also tell Nian to make her dislike you less. However, Sun Ying'er still said this reluctantly. After saying this, he stood up and planned to walk outside. Seeing Sun Ying'er leaving, Lu Jing hurriedly chased after her. Just be less disgusting, why just a little, why not more, and Sun, please don't be so stingy. But Sun Ying'er had no intention of stopping. But when he walked to the door, he saw Lan Min coming in. Sun Ying'er is very calm. But Lan Min's expression immediately changed. And Sun, did you hear me? Just a little more, just a little more. After all, I was beaten like this by Josu. As my aunt, you can't feel sorry for me a little bit. One thing, if you don't promise me, then I will really show it to you. Lan Min listened to these words. Sun Ying'er, what did you say to Lu Jing again? She finally came up with the solution. Miss Sun, what did you say to Lu Jing? When Lan Min said this, she almost printed the words "What did you say to sow discord between us" directly on her forehead. What did I say? What do you think I said to him? Lan Jing looked directly at Lu Jing and looked at him seriously. Lu Jing, our relationship has been here for so many years. I can say that anyone in this world will lie to you, but I can't. Yang Jing is really a good girl. I have known her for so many years, and I know her very well. You clearly know what I want, but you use others to frustrate me. When Lu Jing said this, he sneered. What Aunt Sun said just now makes sense. She and Aunt also dislike me, but it's much better to express your disgust than you do in your heart. No, I didn't. Whether you have it or not, our relationship ends here. I am serious this time. After all, they all despise me. Why don't I choose someone who obviously despises me? Lu Jing was really angry this time. He can accept that Lan Min doesn't love him, and he can accept the fact that he is a spare tire and even a dog licker, but he really can't accept that Lan Min casually gave himself to others in order to get rid of himself. He really doesn't know what he is in Lan Min's eyes. Is he just a toy? Then what? After saying this, he directly took Sun Ying'er's hand and walked forward. You must know that she had been thinking about introducing Yang Jing to Lu Jing for a long time. She thought that this would change everything, but she did not expect this. She immediately stepped forward. Lu Jing, I really don't dislike you. If you want, you have always been the most important person in my heart. This is why I can't hold others in my heart because of Lin Yuan. But this time, no matter what Lan Min said, Lu Jing had no intention of stopping. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 792. Chapter 792, will bring bad luck to children. In the bedroom, Sunian held her cell phone and listened to Sun Ying'er's complaints. After hearing the end, I couldn't help but say, do you think Lu Jing has really given up on Lan Min? I don't know. Anyway, his attitude is quite similar. But at this point, Sun Ying'er paused slightly. But in the end, why did this guy want to hold my hand? It was like a love triangle. I shouldn't be soft-hearted. I feel like I shouldn't be in contact with this guy. I will be embarrassed because of this guy every time. Sunian couldn't help laughing when he heard this. Don't laugh, your sister and I have become like this, and you still laugh, even though it's so late now, but if you make me angry, then I can kill you in minutes, find you your trouble, Sun Ying said fiercely. This voice is indeed very ferocious. There is just a slight smile in this voice. Sun Ying was frightened for a while and then sighed, but that's right, we can't understand Lu Jing's thinking. As long as he is happy, that's fine. Just when they were talking about being energetic, someone passed by Sunian again. Sunian turned over after seeing it and didn't look at him. But someone didn't give up and deliberately drifted again. Ever since that night, someone has been floating around Sunian. The more this happened, Sunian just wanted to pretend not to see it. She had no choice but to make this man anxious. Sunian remembered that Li Baikan once said that he wanted to be sexually manipulated. If that was the case, then he would continue to be a monk. Men are like this sometimes. The less you want to give it to him, the more he wants it. Sunian looked at someone and said. After wandering around for a while, the man who was holding a handful of books and planning to sit down smiled. Seeing the smile on the corner of the man's mouth, Sunian felt even more uncomfortable. Sister, I can't understand such a man anyway. It may be a man's hobby. Just like this guy Li Baikan, he acted like he was at a disadvantage and was ruined by me, but now, he is not like this now. I won't let you succeed. I'll see what he will be like. That's right, I just want this guy to know that he will have to pay back the money if he comes out to fool around. Li Baikan raised his eyebrows slightly, and then stretched his hand aside, putting his hand into Sunian's clothes. Sunian, who was speaking, almost had his teeth tied in knots when he was treated like this. After he reacted, he glared at Li Baikan next to him. But, Li Baikan's eyes are on the book now, so he can't feel Sunian's eyes at all. Sunian couldn't help but reach out and hit the man's hand. But such behavior is nothing to a thick-skinned person. On the contrary, excessive measures. You should know that Sunian is on the phone. The key point is that Sun Ying still likes to gossip. If something really happened and I saw it tomorrow, I would be surprised if I didn't get ridiculed to death. Sister, I think I heard Mo Bao cry. I hung up. I want to see what happened to Mo Bao because Li Baikan was pushing the limit and had no choice. Sunian could only give a random reason. Sure enough, Sun Ying immediately hung up the phone after hearing this reason. After the phone call ended, a certain culprit looked at her with half-smiling eyes. We are all mothers, don't you know that lying and deceiving people is not a good thing? You will lead the children into mischief. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 793. Chapter 793. How can you talk to a child like this? When Sunian heard this, he immediately became angry. I really want to bite this guy to death right now. What does it mean to not know that lying and deceiving people is not a good thing? If it weren't for this hateful guy, then would I lie and deceive people? Now you are acting like this again, as if you are criticizing me from the moral high ground. You still want to touch me like this? I think this guy is dreaming. Just when Sunian was slandering her, the man glanced at her and took her into his arms. I look at you like you want to bite me. What the is going on with this man? Why does he feel like a roundworm in my stomach? He can actually guess what is going on in my mind. No, if this guy could really guess what I was thinking, then how could he make me angry? Why are you angry? Could it be that I made you angry? If I make you angry, then I will give you a chance to bite me and vent your anger a little bit. Do you really think I won't bite you? When Sunian said this, he raised his chin slightly, trying to show that his face was not to be messed with. How could it be, honey? How could I think so? After all, for me, I am the one in your palm. You can deal with me how you want to deal with me. Sunian put her finger on his lips. What do you want to do? Don't forget the lesson learned last time. Didn't you feel uncomfortable last time? Sure enough, when Li Baikan heard this, his expression changed. That evening, he was indeed willing to put the child to sleep, but there were some thoughts that he still couldn't give up. That night was really hard. After all, no matter how good my son is, he can't compare to my precious wife. It's uncomfortable. You know it's difficult for me. If you know it's uncomfortable, why don't you feel sorry for me? In fact, that night, he originally wanted to execute this little woman on the spot the next day, or even during the day, but suddenly there was something in the branch that he needed to deal with, and there was no way. He finally came back today. The first thing he did was make Mo Bao feel strong fatherly love. Mo Bao, who was going to kiss me and spit on my face, fortunately, I hid quickly enough. Now, don't you miss me? In no mood. But I miss you. My body aches when I think about it. It really hurts. The man's breathing was heavy, and his hot breath touched her ears. But it's calligraphy. Don't worry, I've already discussed it with Mo Bao and won't disturb us. The man's voice was full of lust. I'm telling Mo Bao, don't you miss your parents' feelings? If your parents aren't always here, if we are together, then the feelings will slowly fade away. Sunian. How can you say this to your child? Humph, this guy must be teasing me. It's really a bit too much. I love you, darling, my baby. Even if you want my life now, as long as you say it, then I can give you everything. It's true. I didn't coax you. You now I'll give you whatever you want. I love you, I really love you. Although Sunian really didn't want this guy to succeed, his deep voice really made it difficult for Sunian to maintain his so-called sanity. It can only be gradually addicted. Gradually he was brought together to share the bliss. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 794. Chapter 794 Thinking about what love is. When Sunian wakes up, she looked up at the man. Look at the man's face. She thought that when they were in love, his voice was filled with love. Made her a little addicted. But after coming out of lust, Sunian thought of what Li Baikan said at that time, and at the same time she was also curious about what love was. She remembered that there was a line in the Hong Kong version of Journey to the West that was, "Ask what love is in the world, and it will teach you how to make love between life and death." Does love really have that kind of magic power? Is Li Baikan's love true? Sunian thought of Li Baikan's eyes every time he said he loved her. There was no way to ignore the burning look in his eyes. But what is love? But when she realized what she was doing, Sunian felt like laughing. After all, in a bad Mary Sue novel, the most important thing is not love, but I am actually thinking about what love is in such a bad Mary Sue novel. Isn't this ridiculous enough? It's even a complete waste of so-called time. When thinking of this, Sunian couldn't help but yawned. Rubbed on Li Baikan's chest. Then he closed his eyes again. When she closed her eyes, the eyelashes of the man holding her trembled slightly. That's right, he heard all of Sunian's thoughts just now. She began to think about what love is. Li Baikan understood that this was a good sign, but he still felt a little uncomfortable. In fact, he always knew that Sunian only regarded him as her husband. Those lingering feelings and affection are just because he is her husband. Even, if her husband were someone else, she would do the same. Li Baikan knew very clearly that by thinking this way, he was simply making himself feel uncomfortable. But he could not restrain his greed. I want her to love herself. Just like that, Li Baikan hugged Sunian. until the alarm goes off. Only then did Lee Baiken come back to his senses. He subconsciously wanted to reach out and turn off the alarm clock. But before he had time to turn it off, the little woman in his arms had already moved. She stretched. "It's better not to set the alarm clock in the future." Lee Baiken kissed the corner of her lips. "Just let me wake you up." But when Sunian heard this, he glared fiercely. "Wake me up, will you wake me up? At the beginning, you also said similar things, but it was 10 o'clock when I woke up. Well, I didn't go at all that morning. Fortunately, I didn't have anything important to do. If I had something important to do, I would have been delayed." Lee Baiken touched his nose when he heard this, feeling a little guilty. "You just started working in the company. During that time I felt that you didn't take over many important things, so I didn't call you." Sunian, who was getting up, stopped when he heard this, and then looked at Lee Baiken with evil eyes. "What do you mean by this? Do you think women should take care of their children at home and should not go out to work, so that's why you are like this?" Lee Baiken quickly shook his head. "I don't know what other men think, but it's impossible for me to think like this. Even for me, I hope you can go to work instead of taking care of the children at home. After all, if you get along with Mo Bao as time goes by, he becomes more and more important in your heart, and my position becomes worse and worse. I'd better go to work." Sunian was stunned when he heard this. She really didn't expect Lee Baiken to have such thoughts. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 795. Chapter 795. Mo Bao, why did I look forward to this thing in my previous life? Are you even jealous of your son? Unexpectedly, Lee Baiken shook his head seriously. "It's not that I'm jealous of my son, but it's a matter of principle. After all, legally speaking, my spouse should come before his children." Although Lee Baiken knew it very well. "Compared with Mo Bao, I have spent less time together. So what? I have personally taken care of Mo Bao all my life. He will always rely more on himself." Just when Lee Baiken thought of this, there was a knock on the door. The small voice sounds like Mo Bao's. This made me want to say more sweet words to seduce this little woman's heart. Sunian went to open the door. "Good morning, Mo Bao." But Mo Bao had no intention of paying attention to Sunian, and went directly towards Lee Baiken. Lee Baiken came back to his senses and raised his eyebrows slightly when he saw Mo Bao coming towards him. "It seems that this son has no lookeria. I didn't stay with him all night last night, and I couldn't wait to come to see him this morning." Lee Baiken immediately got out of bed and planned to pick up Mo Bao. But before he touched Mo Bao, he was directly hit on the head by a toy. Sunian was a little confused at first, wondering why Mo Bao went to his father today. "I feel happy when I see this picture. It seems that our Mo Bao is angry." Mo Bao immediately turned around and looked at his mother, with grievance written all over his little face. Mom hugs." These words really made Sunian's heart melt. "Hug him up immediately." "Mom, no, Dad." Sunian laughed when he heard this. "What do you mean, you don't want to play with Dad?" Mo Bao nodded. Mo Bao can understand his father. After all, he was a man in his previous life. But there are benefits to being a father, so it's not too much to ask for some of the benefits as a son. For example, today's mother belongs to herself. Go to work with my mother. Mo Bao thinks it's fair. Okay, not with Dad, but with Mom. Don't be angry, Mo Bao is the best, don't be angry. Mo Bao hugged her tightly and refused to let go. He just wants his mother to know how angry he is. What else could Lee Baiken do? He could only smile and walk to the two of them. "Mo Bao, come and give me a hug." Mo Bao didn't want to talk to him. Anyway, he doesn't want to follow this dad today. Before, he really wanted to enjoy the father's love that he didn't have in his previous life, but after enjoying it for so long, it's almost enough. He needs to enjoy maternal love. Dad knows that you are unhappy, but Mo, you have to know that you have grown up now, and you are still a boy, and boys should be strong. Sunian. Mo. If possible, Mo really wanted to slap this guy away. Is this the father he expected in his previous life? Now Mo really regrets it. I regret why I expected this thing in my previous life. What does it mean to be a boy and what does it mean to be strong? When I wanted to hear him call him dad before, I had to coax him in all kinds of ways. Now that I succeeded, I turned against him and refused to recognize him. I'm really angry. Mo doesn't speak much now, but Sunian does. Sunian glanced at Lee Baikan angrily. As a father, how can you say that? He is less than 1 year old, and you were not like this a few days ago. But Lee Baikan said confidently, men should be able to bend and stretch, and besides, our Mo is much smarter than ordinary children. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jung Word. Chapter 796. Chapter 796. Why do you think Lee Baikan did it on purpose? Able to bend and stretch. Do you think the word flexible and able to stretch is really appropriate to use here? Why is it inappropriate? Does this word stipulate where it must be used? After saying this, he kissed Sunian's cheek unceremoniously. As long as it can be placed in the right place, it's fine. After all, Kangja originally created characters just for convenience. If the characters were stipulated to be placed in specific places, don't you think the characters would lose their original meaning? Even though Sunian clearly knew that this guy was talking nonsense. But, I really think it makes some sense. It does make some sense. I remember that usually the bosses in Mary Sue's are very knowledgeable. All of them have studied abroad and have advanced degrees. There are even some exaggerated settings for male protagonists in Mary Sue novels. They have studied in more than a dozen countries and have academic qualifications in more than a dozen countries. Okay, I almost forgot, Lee Baikan is the second male lead in this novel world. The second male lead does not have the same experience of abuse as the male lead. But even if the second male lead has no experience of adultery, he cannot say it casually. Is he really not worried that his teacher will listen to him making up idioms like this? Well, I think if I really knew, I would probably be off by this guy. Okay, since I made our Mo angry, then just leave him to me. Since I made it, I should be responsible to the end. But, Mo never let go. Lee Baikan and Sunian finally understood. Mo really doesn't want to be with Lee Baikan. Forget it, Mo is in a bad mood now. Why don't you just follow him? Anyway, there is nothing going on in the company recently. Why don't I take him to the company for a walk today? After all, Mo has been to his father's company, but he has never been there. Mom's company. I didn't expect that. Sunian had just finished saying this. Mo began to nod. Obviously, I have to follow my mother no matter what today. Lee Baikan wanted to say something else. But Sunian said, it's not normal for a child to have a temper. If you really want to argue with him, you might make him uncomfortable. Sunian had reached this point, so what else could Lee Baikan say? He could only smile helplessly and gently pinch Mo's face with his hand. But it was okay if Lee Baikan didn't pull him. As soon as he did, Mo burst into tears without hesitation. The sudden burst of crying really caught Lee Baikan off guard. Sunian immediately glared at Lee Baikan fiercely, then hugged the child and left directly. Li Baikan was left helpless where he was. He touched his nose a little embarrassed. He didn't use any force at all, right? If he was tortured by this brat like this, if he didn't know better, he would have thought that he was abusing him. Why is this child so temperamental? And I didn't treat him badly in normal times. But why did Li Baikan feel that this brat did it on purpose? He did it on purpose. When he thought of this, Li Baikan sighed deeply. After all, even if that brat really did it on purpose, there is nothing he can do about it, since he is still so young. In a few years, it will be fine in a few years. Li Baikan sighed for a while and walked to the cloakroom. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 797. Chapter 797, What if I am spoiled and become Lu Jing? When Sun Ying saw Mo Bao, her eyes suddenly lit up. I immediately hurried to Sunian. Then he took the child in Sunian's hand and said, Mo Bao, why is Mo Bao here today? And Mo Bao is coming today. Why didn't you tell me in advance? If you had told me in advance, then my aunt would pick you up. Originally, he was supposed to follow his father to the company, but his father made him angry and refused to follow him to the company, so I brought him here. Sun Ying laughed out loud when she heard this. So that's it, it turns out that our Mo Bao has such a big temper, but that's right, our Mo Bao is the eldest young master of the Li family, and is also the sweetheart of my Sun Ying. The bigger the temper, the bigger the temper. Sister, aren't you worried about spoiling Mo Bao rotten? But Sun Ying didn't take it seriously. What does it mean to be spoiled? Mo Bao's identity is here. I am telling the truth. And if Mo Bao has a bad temper, he may be looked down upon. What if I get spoiled and become the second Lu Jing? After Sunian finished speaking, the two looked at each other. Sunian. Sun Ying Sun Ying immediately laughed out loud. Nian, do you know what you are talking about? Are you so unsure of yourself? And can someone like Lu Jing be born to an ordinary person? I really feel now that he is a genetic mutation. Mo Bao looked at the two women talking so much. In his last life, there was no such aunt around his mother. Basically, I work between work and home, and I don't have any hobbies. The people she comes into contact with are basically those who wear masks. There is not much sincerity at all. Okay, let's not mention Lu Jing. If we talk about Lu Jing like this, what if that Lu Jing really shows up? After saying this, there was a knock on the office door. Then the door was opened. Aunts, good morning, it's another beautiful day. I don't know what arrangements the two aunts have today. Is there anything you need from me? If there is anything that needs my service, then you two aunts. Just tell me, even if your precious nephew goes through fire and water, it will be done. Sun Ying I just said it casually. Is it really so accurate? Lu Jing walked in and saw Mo Bao. Our lovely Mo Bao is also here, let me hug him. You'd better forget it. If you drop the calligraphy treasure, you'll be dead. But after Lu Jing heard this, he glanced at his mouth and said, Auntie, what do you mean? Am I so unreliable? Really, your words really hurt my self-esteem. Helping self-esteem. Sun Ying looked at Lu Jing seriously after hearing this. Hey, and son, you are really going too far. I don't even have self-respect, so what will I become? Sun Ying said nothing. Just holding Mo Bao in his arms, he took a few steps back. You, and son, you are really going too far. You look at me like this. If you continue to look at me like this, then I really... Sun Ying looked over. Lu Jing immediately shut up. In this way, Sun Ying carried Mo Bao with her all the time in the company, and Sunian didn't need to intervene at all. Even though Sun Yian was worried that Sun Ying'er was tired and wanted to take over, Sun Ying'er refused directly. Li Baikan was a little greasy after receiving a big response, so I immediately changed it, and after a few chapters I let him overturn. It will definitely overturn and make him pay for his greasiness. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 798. Chapter 798. Sun Ying'er understood why Sun Yian hesitated just now. At noon, Li Baikan appeared in front of Mo Bao with a selection of toys. But after Mo Bao took it, he hit Li Baikan directly in the face. Lu Jing next to him couldn't help complaining when he saw this scene. Li Baikan's son has such a bad temper. It seems that I'd better have a daughter in the future, a daughter who looks like me, hee hee. Sun Ying'er. Just with Lu Jing's IQ. By the way, what happened to make Mo Bao so angry? Sun Ying'er leaned directly into Sun Yian's ear. Sun Yian really didn't know what to say when he heard this. Could it be that Li Baikan sneaked over and climbed into her bed in the middle of the night, and then didn't sleep with Mo Bao? Ahem, Sun Yian really doesn't know what to say. When Sun Ying'er saw Sun Yian's expression, the smile on her face became ambiguous. Nian, why do you have such an expression? Is there something you can't say to me, a sister? Sister, what do you mean by this? I have nothing to say to you. It's really nothing. Baikan just accidentally offended Mo Bao. You have to know what this kid knows, and you also said before yes. What is Mo Bao's identity? Everyone around him regards Mo Bao as a treasure. In this situation, Mo Bao is very squeamish. But the more Sun Yianyu said this, in Sun Ying'er's heart, it was completely a guilty conscience. There is a big problem. Under such circumstances, how could Sun Ying'er not be a little curious? Let me guess what's going on. Could it be that Mo Bao wants to sleep with you at night, but someone doesn't want to, and someone wants to sleep with you at night? Well, thinking about it this way, I kind of understand why Mo Bao has such a big baby. The anger is indeed worth being angry about. Sun Yian. In the CEO novel, it does often happen that the sons of the male protagonist and the female protagonist compete for favor. But when we arrived at their house, it seemed to be the other way around. It's really nothing. Oh, sister, please stop guessing. It's really not what you think. But Sun Ying'er didn't speak, she just acted like, I understand everything. On the other side, Li Baikan coaxed him for a long time. But Mo Bao remained unmoved. That's right, Mo Bao needs to be a good-tempered Mo Bao. What should I do if I can't coax Mo Bao? When Li Baikan said this, he looked at Sun Yian who was beside him. But Sun Yian deliberately kept a cold face. Li Baikan once again set his sights on Mo Bao. Looking like this, it's really hard to coax. What should I do? Mo Bao, can you give Dad a hint? Just a little hint. What kind of hint are you doing? No, it's really hard for Dad to do this. Mo Bao snorted again. Li Baikan sighed deeply at this moment. If this is the case, then I have no other choice but to give up. After saying this, Li Baikan stood up and walked towards Sun Yian. Sun Ying'er and Lu Jing, who were watching the show, were really stunned by this operation. I saw Mo Bao, who was originally extremely cold, quickly crawled in front of Li Baikan after his father went to find his mother, and then blocked him. Mo Bao, what do you mean? Are you not angry with me anymore? Haha, I know you are the most obedient, Mo Bao. How could you be angry with Dad all the time? At this moment, Sun Ying'er finally understood why Sun Yian was so hesitant just now. Indeed, Li Baikan is really a bit hard to explain when he becomes a father like this. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Which John Word. Chapter 799. Chapter 799 Lu Jing, it's great to have a son. If Mo Bao could talk now, then you will definitely curse. Even though he is a son. I can also curse. After all, with a father like this, who wouldn't curse? But at the same time, I also blame myself a little, why I am so unsatisfied, why I saw this dad leaving, so I immediately chased after him. There is really no heirs at all. Li Baikan bent down to hug her. But Mo Bao stood up directly. That's right, Mo Bao stood up directly. The trembling little appearance. Everyone was a little shocked when they saw Mo Bao like this. Lu Jing's voice rang out, ha ha ha, Li Baikan, you actually made your son stand up so angry. Why do I feel lucky that he is a son? If he were a girl, or if his hair was a little longer, then maybe his hair would be I'm so angry with you that I stand up. Li Baikan stopped teasing Mo Bao and hurriedly walked over and hugged Mo Bao. Okay, Dad is wrong, Dad will coax you seriously. But it was too late now, so Mo Bao looked directly at his mother, Mom, change Dad. Li Baikan. Lu Jing next to him was really laughing like crazy now, ha ha ha, Li Baikan, can you be a little bit better? You've made your son so angry that he almost wants to change his father. Ha ha ha, he wants to change his father no matter how old he is. Li Baikan was fine at first, but after hearing Lu Jing's words, his face became darker than ever. Lu Jing felt that this joke would make him laugh at Li Baikan for a long time. No, it would make him laugh at Li Baikan for the rest of his life. This is really amazing. Li Baikan didn't expect that Mo Bao would say such a thing. He was just teasing him on purpose. And just this time, he, the father, had personally taken care of him since he was born. Lu Jing next to him continued, Li Baikan, if your son encounters a composition about his father in school in the future, he can write, why is my father such a dog? Ha ha ha, the teacher will definitely criticize your son's composition when he sees it. Your son, at that time, your son still said aggrievedly, teacher, you really can't blame me for this. My father has always been such a dog, and he has been such a dog to me since he was a child. What can I do? Mo Bao looked at Lu Jing. He now feels that Lu Jing is a good uncle. It is simply his own mouth. Li Baikan didn't care about Lu Jing at first, but this guy kept saying it next to him. It was really, a bit embarrassing. This made Li Baikan couldn't help but say, Lu Jing, no one will treat you as mute if you don't speak. You must know that Lu Jing has always been frustrated by Li Baikan. Now he finally sees Li Baikan frustrated. How could he let go of such an opportunity? I will never let it go. Li Baikan, what do you mean by this? You can do such a thing, are you still afraid of what I say? Yo, your dignified CEO of the Li Group is actually so stingy and has no sense of dignity. Are you really not afraid? Will you be laughed at if you spread the word? Ha ha ha, I saw it anyway, you'd better treat me a little better. If you treat me badly, then I really don't know what I will say. Talk. Sun Ying'er silently walked away from Lu Jing. Hey, this Lu Jing really never got beaten unjustly. Li Baikan looked ugly, but no matter what, I still have a son, and your son doesn't know where he is yet. Lu Jing. Is it great to have a son? End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Which John Word. Chapter 800. Chapter 800 Mr. Lu went on a blind date, and his daughters fled in all directions. Lu Jing immediately said, what does this mean, Li Baikan? I will start a blind date now and find a wife with my status. It will only take a matter of minutes. I will give birth to a child next year. After saying this, he left. That night, the VIP waiting room of the local airport was packed with people. When people entering see someone they know, their first greeting is, "Don't you want to go on a blind date with Lu Jing too?" It was really with one fell swoop that the daughters of the city's famous aristocrats ran away en masse. The result of this was that Lu Jing hugged Sun Ying'er and cried, why do you do this to me? I am a very honest person. There has never been a so-called yin yan around me. I am as protective as a jade. If you marry me, then I hand over all my salary and I will listen to my wife in everything. Why is this? Although Lu Jing's appearance is really miserable now. Sun Ying'er knew she shouldn't laugh. But now that Lu Jing is like this, I really can't help it. Ha ha ha. Lu Jing became even more depressed now, and Sun, you can't do this to me. I'm so miserable. Why are you still laughing at me? Are you so unsympathetic? I'm sorry, I know ha ha ha, I'm so unsympathetic, but I really can't control myself, I don't know why, you are so funny, Lu Jing, you give me a little time so that I can calm down a little bit, when I calm down, then, I will definitely listen to you. Lu Jing. Lu Jing looked to the other side, Auntie, and you, look at what you look like now, you smile like this, aren't you afraid that I will show your ugly photos? Lu Jing said, his eyes suddenly lit up here. Yes, he can threaten in this way. Thinking of this, Lu Jing immediately stood up and took out his mobile phone. But before he pressed the shutter, he heard Sunian's faint voice, Lu Jing, you have to think clearly about what the consequences will be if you really take the photo. Lu Jing. What else could Lu Jing do when he heard this? He could only silently put away his phone. Sun Ying'er also knew that she couldn't go too far, so she took a deep breath. Actually, they ran away not only because you are not a very good person, but also because you are entangled with Lan Min. Everyone knows that you like Lan Min, even if you do anything for Lan, I don't think any woman would want her future spouse to do this. But Lu Jing was confused when he heard this. Isn't this bad? Doesn't this prove that I am very serious about relationships? Don't you women hope to have a loving, gentle, and honest man? Sun Ying'er was really speechless. Originally, the thinking of straight men is very speechless, but obviously, straight men with no brains are even more speechless. Yes, we women do like gentle and affectionate men, but we don't like men who are gentle and affectionate to other women. Lan Min is your Baiyu Guang now. In the eyes of everyone, you can do anything for this Baiyu Guang. Whatever happens, if Lan Min, Baiyu Guang, turns around, you just abandon her and go to Baiyu Guang. Sunian nodded when he heard this. You must know that after a survey on the internet, men all value Baiyu Guang. If they really choose you, and something like that happens, the woman will be embarrassed in the end. End of this chapter.